Alright, well, welcome to Sex It Happens video for the notes number 5. And we have our sperm. They are racing, swimming, the few, the proud, the ones that are still alive. And they're heading to try to find the egg. And you can see that on the cellular level, the female's reproductive region is pretty complex looking, more than we would ever suspect. And you can see that only one particular sperm will reach the egg. You can see numerous ones are trying to get there at that moment. So you have millions that have died, and a small percentage of those that have survived out of all those millions will reach the egg. The hope is for every parent that when that single sperm, the first to enter the egg and fertilize it, the hope is that once that happens, that this sperm right here has the correct number of chromosomes and they have everything that the baby will need to develop healthy and have a productive life. But that's not a guarantee. It's not a guarantee that this fused cell now that's going to divide and produce a child, an offspring, with all these little tangled up chromosomes and DNA, there's no guarantee that everything works perfect. Just because it was the first sperm doesn't mean it has all of the allele versions that a parent would want. So let's look at chromosomes. We're going to study some new words and we're going to figure out what are good words to describe these chromosomes here so that we have a good vocabulary so we can describe genetic disorders. Because this doesn't always happen perfect. Left off on slide 35. Slide 35 resulted in us discovering that the sperm that fertilized a lady's egg happened to carry with it an extra chromosome 21. Their child had Down syndrome. The child hasn't been born yet, but just as in real life, you can actually know if your child has particular chromosome disorders before they were born. You can prepare yourself for it. Here's a list of common ones. Kridushak, Down syndrome, we've learned before. 47 is XXY, you get 2 extra X's. Turner syndrome and Williams syndrome. Let's look at one randomly. Let's look at the one that's we're most familiar with, Down syndrome. You know you get an extra chromosome 21. What that meant is some mistake happened. Here are some symptoms of Down syndrome. You can see that facial features may be unique, different than your typical person. And there's a list of health risks that come with that, as well as behavior, and what it is to be and act like someone with Down syndrome. And also there's a long list of just how they diagnose it. In our project that's coming up soon, you may have a patient with Down syndrome or one of these other 4 genetic or chromosomal abnormalities or genetic disorder. But let's continue doing our notes. Let's not get too sidetracked so we can start learning good vocabulary. So let's start out with this slide. This is slide 36. It says look at numbers 1, 4, and 5. So that means this part of the model. So we have a big model here. And there's a section 1, a 4, and a 5. So it says look at the numbers 1, 4, and 5 like we did. It says predict or identify which number corresponds to the scenarios below. It says chromosomes duplicated. Are chromosomes duplicated in 1, 4, or 5? Well, just from the experiences we had with our Statement of Understanding, our SOU worksheet, zip on back there. Based on this activity we did, we know that when a chromosome does in fact duplicate, and it kind of has an X shape. So let's head back to the slide we need. There we go. And it takes this kind of X shape. These are what chromosomes look like when they get duplicated. So number 4 is the first one, or sorry, number 1 is the first one. So in section 1, the chromosomes duplicate. Then it says duplicated chromosomes will be broken apart like a Kit Kat. So each gamete gets 1 copy. So which part here, 1, 4, or 5, is the chromosome being broken apart? Well, the questions are in the same order that it all happened. So 1 was where the chromosome got duplicated, and it looks like this. And then, of course, it gets broken apart. It's getting separated in 4. So that a gamete, or an egg like this one, would receive only one of the 2 duplicated chromosomes. You don't want an egg look like this, right? This is halfway through meiosis. This is meiosis is done. That's what the egg should look like. And it says each gamete gets a copy of this chromosome, or what they're calling a sister chromatid, which it looks like this. Sister chromatids look like just straight lines, narrow. They don't have the X shape. So sister chromatid looks just like that. And then you'd have completed slide 36. You'd answer which number is chromosome duplicated, which number are they pulled apart or separated, and then which one is the sister chromatid or a single chromosome copy is placed in an egg, and that'd be 5. All right, slide 37 defines sister chromatid for us. It lets us know exactly what a sister chromatid is. It says the X-shaped chromosome, and this is kind of the X shape that we all model, so this is another model showing an X-shaped chromosome. It says is actually 2 identical copied chromosomes joined in the center. So you can always see they're joined in the middle. A little easier in this diagram, you can see an X-shaped chromosome. You can see they're identical copies of each other, but they're joined in the center. It says each half of the duplicated chromosome is a sister chromatid. So this side is a sister chromatid, and this side is a sister chromatid. Same in this drawing. So this side, well, you can see it says sister chromatids are exact replicas. So this side and this side are sister chromatids. Let's look, again, we're on slide 37, so make sure you put that in your notebook. It says, number 1, it says interpret is A representing, and A includes this whole thing. So this whole model here, right? So is A representing homologous chromosomes or something called sister chromatids? The other option is number 2. It says interpret if B is representing homologous chromosomes or sister chromatid. So does this include sister chromatids here? Or does A? What do you think? Well, allow me to help you. We haven't learned this word yet, but A represents something different. It's not sister chromatids. These are both different chromosomes. So it must be something different. It must be this thing called homologous chromosomes. Number 2, however, is talking about these 2 things. These are 2 duplicated or copied sides of the same chromosome. Because they are identical copies of the same chromosome attached in the middle, both sides would be sister chromatids. So the answer to B is, in fact, sister chromatids. Just like you can see in the picture, it says sister chromatids are exact replicas. All right, slide 38 is a more clearer version of explaining the parts of the chromosome. So he says homologous regions code for the same gene. It says homologous chromosomes contain DNA that codes for the same gene. They're saying that this duplicated chromosome and this duplicated chromosome, these 2 X-shaped chromosomes, are what's called homologous chromosomes. So when we go back to slide 37, it says interpret A. A is a collection of 2 chromosomes that are called homologous. And each side of each of these duplicated chromosomes are, of course, again, the sister chromatids. So we have sister chromatid, and then if you take them combined, this X and this X-shaped duplicated chromosome together, because they contain the same genes, they're called homologous, or homo as same chromosomes. Slide 39 is the definition, the proper definition for homologous chromosomes. And it is 2 chromosomes, any 2 chromosomes that contain the same genes. So we have 2 copies of each chromosome number 1, we have 2 copies of each chromosome number 2, all the way up to chromosome 23. We have 2 copies of each. And each of those copies are homologous to one another. So everybody has homologous chromosomes. And in this picture, you can see that this chromosome and this chromosome are similar. They're not identical, but they're similar. Question is, are they homologous? Does this red chromosome and this blue chromosome contain the same genes? Do they both have G? Do they both have R? Do they both have S? And do they both have T? If the answer is yes, they are homologous. And so your hypothesis for A in your notebook for slide 39 would be yes, they are homologous. If they don't have the same genes, you would have to say no, they're not. You have to give a reason though. So whether you say it is or isn't homologous, you have to support it with evidence. So you have to explain what you saw that made you believe that it was or wasn't homologous chromosomes. Don't forget to write the definition in your notebook, slide 39, homologous chromosome. Here's some practice. This is straight out of our biology textbook. It's practicing what homologous chromosomes are. Can you look at one chromosome and identify if it is or is not homologous to another chromosome? So let's look at, you basically take chromosome 1 here. Chromosome 1 has F gene, G gene, H gene, and J gene. Remember, all genes are represented with letters, right? It's just how scientists do. But you got to compare it to 2, 3, 4, and 5. Chromosome 2, chromosome 3, 4, and 5. Number 1, and in your notebook it would be slide 40. It said, could chromosome 2 be homologous with chromosome 1? So does 2 contain the same genes as number 1? Yes, it does. They both contain F, they both contain G, H, and J. Now they have different versions of the gene. This has a dominant version of J and this has a recessive version of J, but it doesn't matter. As long as they all or both have the F, G, H, and J, and they both do. They don't have to have identical alleles, they just have to have the same genes. So 1 would be yes, because they both contain F, G, H, and J genes. Number 2 through 4, I'll let you answer on your own, but let's look at them really quickly. It says, could chromosome 3 be homologous with chromosome 1? Explain why. So you compare chromosome 1 to 3. Do they have the same exact genes? Number 3, could chromosome 4 be homologous with chromosome 1? Well, you look at chromosome 1, you look at 4. This one might be a little easier to answer whether it is homologous or not, if it contains the same genes or not. And number 4, finish it up. Make sure for slide 40 you answer all 4. The first one I did for you. Good luck. Slide 41 is another example how scientists in a real lab can identify and figure out which chromosomes are homologous to one another. And it's because they take on these banding patterns. So scientists in a laboratory, they have to study someone's DNA, especially if they're trying to find out if they have some kind of disorder. And they look at the banding pattern, and if 2 chromosomes are of the same size and they have the same banding pattern, it's a strong indication that they are homologous chromosomes. They're 2 chromosomes that contain the same genes. And so when you're helping to decide if someone has too many copies of a chromosome, you put them together. Just like we did with our activity, the karyotyping activity. This is exactly what a scientist does. They stain and dye the different chromosomes of a patient. This was patient A's, right? And because they're able to figure out which ones look the same, they can kind of study the appearance and the banding pattern and say, you know what, these are homologous, these are homologous. Chromosomes don't have perfect straight shapes. But you can see some chromosomes are short, but they have a similar banding pattern. And if it wasn't for this, if it wasn't for the banding pattern, a scientist would never know that patient A had Down syndrome. They wouldn't be able to know. But luckily we can get inside the cells of a patient and we can get to their chromosomes and study them to try to figure out better what's going on. Number 1, it says answer the question. It says chromosomes from box A is homologous to which chromosome? So homologous in box A, based on the banding pattern, is homologous to A, B, C, D, or E. What do you think? So you compare and figure out which one has the most similar banding pattern, and that's the one that's going to be homologous. Then it says, watch video and provide 3 observations, and don't worry about it. I was going to delete it. Don't worry about it. So for slide 41, just answer question 1, simply enough. Then it says, rank other chromosomes from most to least similar to box A chromosomes. So rank them from most to least similar to chromosome A or in box A. Okay? All right, good luck, and I'll conclude the notes on that. Have a great day, and look forward to Sex It Happens notes number, I think, 5 or 6. Take care.